There is something happening right now that you cannot explain. Something pulled you here to this moment, to these words, and it was not by chance, not by accident, not by the random drifting of a restless afternoon. You did not stumble into this. You were guided here. And if you have been feeling lately like you are stuck, like the walls of your life have been closing in slowly and quietly, and you cannot quite find the door, if you have been praying the same prayer for months or maybe years, whispering the same desperate words into the dark before you fall asleep, wondering if anyone is listening, wondering if the silence means something is broken, then stop right there. Stop right in that thought. Because what you are about to hear was meant for you specifically, and the God who created every star in every galaxy and breathed life into every living thing on this earth also breathed intention into this very moment. He did not bring you here for nothing. He did not arrange this intersection of word and soul for a moment that was going to pass without meaning. He brought you here because he has something to say to you, something he has been trying to say through the hard seasons, through the closed doors, through the silence that felt like abandonment, but was never that at all. You may have woken up this morning feeling ordinary, maybe even forgotten. Maybe the weight of your circumstances has been pressing so long and so hard that you have started to believe, somewhere deep and quiet and private inside you, that God has moved on to someone else, someone more put together, someone more deserving, someone whose life looks like the answer and not the question. Maybe you have been watching other people receive their breakthroughs while you are still standing in the waiting room of your own life, wondering what you did wrong, wondering when your name is going to be called. That feeling is real. That exhaustion is real. That longing is real. The ache of wanting more, not out of greed or pride, but out of the deep, God-given sense that there is a purpose attached to your life that has not yet been fully lived. That ache is real, and it is not weakness. It is a signal. It is your spirit recognizing that there is more, and the God who sees everything, the God who counts the hairs on your head and knows the number of your days, and sees every silent tear you have cried in the dark, that God sees all of it, every single piece of it. And he has not looked away. He has not grown tired of you. He has not decided you are too complicated or too broken or too ordinary to bother with. Quite the opposite. He has been moving, quietly and powerfully and with perfect precision, in the background of your story, arranging things you cannot see yet, closing doors that would have led you somewhere painful, opening pathways that have not yet become visible, preparing a blessing so specific to who you are that when it arrives, you will not have a single doubt about where it came from. Stay with this message until the very end, not because it was designed to hold your attention, but because there is something here that God has been trying to say to you, and today, right now, is the day you are ready to hear it. Your life is about to change. Your season is about to shift. And the reason you are here, reading these words, feeling that something is stirring inside you that you cannot quite name, that reason is divine. You are not ordinary. You are not forgotten. You are chosen. And it is time you understood, deeply and personally and without reservation, what that actually means. There is a story told about a man named Moses, a fugitive, a shepherd, someone who had failed publicly and spectacularly and fled in shame to the backside of the desert. A man who, when God appeared to him in a burning bush and said, "I am sending you to deliver my people," responded with 5 separate reasons why God had the wrong person. He said he was not eloquent. He said no one would believe him. He said he was slow of speech and slow of tongue. He was, by every human measure, the least likely candidate for one of the greatest assignments in all of human history. And yet God chose him anyway, not despite his weakness, but knowing it fully and choosing him anyway. That is not a detail. That is the entire point. God looked at a man who had every reason to believe his best days were behind him, a man who had failed and run and hidden, and he said, "You are the one. Not someday, not after you fix yourself. Right now, exactly as you are." When God selects someone for a great purpose, he does not scan the horizon for the most qualified, the most polished, the most put-together candidate. He does not look for someone who has it all figured out. He looks for someone whose heart is open, someone whose life has been shaped by the kind of pain that builds depth, someone who has been humbled enough to depend on something greater than their own ability. He chose Moses, the fugitive. He chose David, the shepherd boy, the youngest, the smallest, the one his own father did not bother to call when the prophet came looking for a king. He chose Peter the fisherman, impulsive and rough-edged, who would later deny knowing Jesus 3 times in a single night and then go on to build the early church. He chose a woman named Ruth, who was a widow, a foreigner, a woman with nothing, who walked away from everything familiar to follow a God she was still learning to know, and through her faithfulness, he wove her into the lineage of the Messiah himself. He chose a young woman named Mary from an insignificant town, and through her ordinary body, he brought the most extraordinary gift the world had ever received. Every single time, God chose someone the world would have passed over. Every single time, the choosing made no earthly sense, and every single time, it worked more beautifully and more powerfully than anything human strategy could have produced. So if you have been disqualifying yourself, telling yourself that you have made too many mistakes, that your past is too messy, that you do not have the right background or the right education or the right connections or the right anything, then you need to understand something right now. Your brokenness is not a barrier to God's choosing. It is often the very thing that qualifies you, because a person who knows they cannot do it alone is a person who will give God the glory when it gets done. A person who has walked through darkness has a light to offer that a person who has never struggled simply does not possess. Your pain has a purpose that is greater than you can currently see. Your struggles are not punishment, they are preparation. And the God who chose Moses and David and Peter and Ruth and Mary, that same God, that same choosing, that same relentless, purposeful, beautiful grace has chosen you. Not the version of you that has it together, the real you, the tired you, the waiting you, the one who is still here, still hoping, still pressing forward, even when the pressing costs everything. That is the you God looked at and said, that one is mine. There are seasons in a person's life that feel like nothing is happening, and those are often the seasons when everything is happening. The soil looks empty, the ground looks dry. The surface gives no indication of the work being done beneath it. But underground, in the dark, in the hidden places where no eye can see, something is growing, something is being prepared. Something is putting down roots that will eventually support something so large and so fruitful that the current silence will seem, in retrospect, like the most important season of all. And if you have been in one of those seasons, if your life has felt strangely quiet, if doors have been closing one after another, if the path you were so certain about has grown foggy and uncertain, then what you are experiencing is not the absence of God's movement. It is the sign of it. The stillness is not empty. The stillness is full of things you cannot yet perceive. There are specific signs that God is preparing a blessing in your life, and they do not always look the way you expect. One of them is restlessness, that deep, unsettling feeling that you were made for more, that something is supposed to happen but has not happened yet, that you are waiting for something you cannot name. That restlessness is not anxiety without purpose. It is spiritual hunger. It is your soul recognizing that there is more coming, pressing toward it, leaning into the future before it arrives. Another sign is the closing of doors. When opportunities fall through, when relationships end, when jobs disappear, when plans collapse into rubble, and you are standing in the middle of what used to be the life you planned, the natural response is to interpret all of it as failure, as rejection, as evidence that God has turned his back. But sometimes God closes a door not because he is withholding something from you, but because he is protecting you from something that would have cost you your destiny. A door that closes is not always a door God wants you to grieve. Sometimes it is a door he wants you to thank him for. Sometimes the path that ended before you got where you thought you were going was a path that was leading somewhere you were never meant to go. Another sign is isolation, the season where your circle shrinks, where relationships shift, where you find yourself pulled away from the noise and into a quieter, more interior place. Isolation is one of the most misunderstood gifts God ever gives his chosen people, because before elevation always comes separation. Before Joseph was lifted up to the second highest position in all of Egypt, he was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison for a crime he did not commit. For years, nothing made sense. For years, every sign pointed to abandonment and defeat. But every single step of that painful, bewildering journey was preparation. The pit was classroom. The prison was seminary. The delay was development. Every closed door, every betrayal, every year of waiting was God quietly and precisely shaping Joseph into the man who would one day save nations. A man whose capacity for forgiveness, whose breadth of perspective, whose understanding of both suffering and sovereignty could only have been forged in exactly the fires he had been through. And what felt like rejection, what felt like God had turned his face away, was actually divine protection, carving out divine purpose. What feels like the worst chapter of your story may be the chapter God is using to write your greatest one. The question that lives at the center of every waiting season, the one that rises up in the quiet moments, the one that surfaces at 3 a.m. when the rest of the world is asleep. Why? Why is it taking so long? Why does it seem like everyone else is moving forward while you are standing still? Why does God seem silent when you need him to speak the most? Why would a loving, all-powerful God allow someone he claims to have chosen to suffer through delay after delay after delay, prayer after unanswered prayer, hope deferred again and again until the heart grows sick with the weight of it? These are not faithless questions. They are honest ones, and they deserve an honest answer. God does not delay because he has forgotten you. God does not delay because he has changed his mind about what he promised. God delays because the blessing he has prepared for you requires a version of you that does not yet fully exist, and he loves you too much to give you something you are not yet ready to carry. Think about a child who wants desperately to drive a car. The child is not wrong to want it. The car is real, the road is real, the destination is real. But the child is not yet ready for what driving actually requires: the coordination, the judgment, the awareness of 100 different variables at once, the split-second decisions that can mean the difference between arriving safely and never arriving at all. Giving the child the keys before the time is not generosity. It is danger dressed up as kindness. God does not do that to his children. When he sees that what you are asking for would crush you if it arrived right now, he holds it back, not to punish you, not to tease you, not because he is indifferent to your longing, but to protect you and to prepare you for the fullness of what he has planned. There is a process that gold goes through before it becomes something of great value. It is placed in fire, extreme, consuming, relentless fire. And the heat does not destroy the gold, it purifies it, driving out every impurity, every element that does not belong, leaving behind something refined and true and more valuable than it was before the fire began. There is a promise in that image that is not merely poetic, but deeply, specifically personal. The fire you have been through, the losses, the disappointments, the years of waiting, the prayers that seem to disappear before they reach the ceiling, none of that is waste. Every degree of heat has been purposeful. Every season of pressure has been strategic. God is a craftsman, not a bystander. He does not sit back and let the fire burn without watching it, without managing it, without knowing exactly how long it needs to last and exactly when to pull you out. Abraham waited 25 years for the son God promised him. 25 years of holding a promise he could not see, trusting a God he could not fully understand, believing in a future that made no natural sense whatsoever. And at the end of that long, stretching, faith-building wait, Isaac was born, and the promise was fulfilled in a way that left no room for human boasting, because only God could have done it. And everyone who heard the story knew it. The delay was not God's failure. The delay was God's faithfulness, taking the long road to make sure everything was exactly right. The man, the woman, the moment, the miracle. He is doing the same for you. He is working behind the scenes. He has not forgotten your name. He is simply preparing you for something that requires everything he has been building in you through every hard and holy season of your life. There is something else you need to understand about being chosen, and it is something that the world will not tell you, but that every person who has walked this road of faith eventually discovers for themselves. When God marks someone for a great purpose, the enemy of that purpose marks them too. This is not a comfortable truth, but it is a real one, and understanding it may be the single thing that changes how you interpret everything you have been going through. Everything that has felt designed to break you, every attack that has come at you from directions you did not expect. The spiritual opposition in your life is not random. It is targeted, it is purposeful, and understanding that changes everything. The fear that keeps you awake at night, the anxiety that crowds your thoughts in the morning, the voice of self-doubt that tells you that you are not enough and never will be, the exhaustion that makes even the thought of moving forward feel impossible. These are not just psychological symptoms to be treated and managed. They are spiritual warfare aimed at a specific target, and that target is you. Because you carry something the enemy of your purpose wants to stop before it can fully develop. Look at the pattern across the lives of those God used most powerfully throughout history. Job was a man described as blameless and upright, a man who feared God and turned away from evil at every opportunity, and he lost everything in a single catastrophic sequence of events. His wealth, his children, his health, his comfort, everything that made his life what it was stripped away, leaving him sitting in ashes while his closest friends told him he must have done something terrible to deserve such devastation. And yet Job was not being punished. He was being tested in the most severe way imaginable, because the weight of what God intended to do through him and for him required a faith that could survive the unsurvivable, a trust that could hold, even when every visible evidence had collapsed. Jesus himself, at the very beginning of his public ministry, was led into the wilderness not by the enemy, but by the Spirit of God, for 40 days of intense spiritual opposition. The enemy came with 3 carefully targeted temptations, aiming directly at identity, at pride, at the desire for power and ease and comfort. And Jesus, in the fullness of his humanity, faced every single one and did not yield. David, before he ever wore the crown, spent years hiding in caves and running for his life from King Saul, who wanted him dead. Before the throne, there was the wilderness. Before the coronation, there was the cave. Before the kingdom, there was the season of being hunted and misunderstood and afraid. If you have been under spiritual attack, if the pressure has been unusually intense lately, if you have felt targeted by circumstances that seem designed specifically to break you, that is not a sign that you are losing. That is a sign that you matter. That is a sign that what is inside you poses a serious threat to the enemy's agenda. He does not waste his most focused energy on people who are not going anywhere. The intensity of the warfare reflects the magnitude of the assignment. And the truth that silences every fear, the truth that stands like a wall between you and the attack greater, is he that is within you than he that is in the world. That is not a slogan. That is a declaration of the actual power dynamics of this spiritual battle. The one who lives inside you is greater. The outcome has already been decided. The attack confirms your calling. Hold on. But understanding that you are chosen does not mean the blessing arrives automatically or without any cooperation on your part. There is a preparation required of you, a personal, interior work that only you can do, a clearing of the ground so that what God has prepared can actually take root and grow and bear the kind of fruit that lasts. This is the part that is less dramatic than spiritual warfare and less immediately comforting than prophetic declarations, but it is perhaps the most important part of all, because God is not just preparing a blessing for you, He is preparing you for the blessing. And those are two very different things, and both matter deeply. The areas that require attention are not mysterious or hidden. They begin with humility, the quiet, settled acknowledgement that this life is not about you, that you are not the center of your own story, that the one who created you and called you and is working all things together for your good deserves to be the guiding authority over how you live and what you pursue and what you surrender. Pride closes the hand that God is trying to fill. A person who is convinced they already have everything figured out cannot receive instruction. A person who is not willing to be corrected cannot be led into something better than where they currently are. Humility opens the door that pride has been keeping shut. Then there is obedience, doing what God is asking, even when it is inconvenient, even when it does not make immediate logical sense, even when the step of faith required looks foolish by every worldly standard available to you. Obedience is the language of trust. When you obey, you are saying with your actions what your lips have been saying with words, that you believe He knows better than you do, that you trust His way over your own, that His purposes matter more than your immediate comfort. There is also the matter of what must be released. What habits are still creating distance between you and the life God has for you? What relationships are drawing you backward when God is trying to move you forward? What unforgiveness have you been carrying so long it has become a familiar weight you have stopped noticing? What distractions have been filling the space that was meant to be filled with something purposeful? These are not questions designed to produce guilt. They are questions designed to produce freedom. God is doing a work in you that requires your cooperation, not your perfection, but your willingness. He will not force open a hand that is clenched around something else. But if you are willing to release what is holding you back and surrender what is keeping you small and open your hands and your heart and say, "Whatever you want, God, I trust you completely," then the preparation that has been happening in the hidden places of your life is moving toward completion. You are closer to your breakthrough than the last hard season made you feel. There is a kind of knowledge that comes before evidence, a kind of certainty that does not wait for proof before it acts, that does not require the full picture before it takes the next step, that walks forward into the fog, trusting that the ground will hold even though it cannot yet be seen. That kind of knowledge has a name. It is called faith. And faith is not passive agreement. Faith is not simply believing something quietly in your own heart while sitting perfectly still and waiting for the world to rearrange itself. Faith is movement. Faith is action taken in the direction of what has been promised before the promise has been fulfilled. It is getting up and walking toward the thing God said was yours, even when every current circumstance is still telling a different story. There was a night on a stormy lake when Peter, sitting in a fishing boat with his fellow disciples, saw a figure walking toward them on the surface of the water. The other disciples were paralyzed with fear. Peter, impulsive, passionate, the one who always moved before he had finished thinking. Peter said, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said one word, "Come." And Peter climbed out of the boat and stepped onto the surface of the sea. That is the moment people celebrate. But what is equally important is what happened a few steps later when Peter, feeling the force of the wind and seeing the size of the waves, took his eyes off Jesus and felt the fear rise up in his chest and began to sink. And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him. Both halves of that story matter. The getting out of the boat matters, the courage, the wild and reckless decision to trust the word more than the evidence. But the catching matters just as much. Because Peter's faith was not perfect. It wavered, it cracked under the pressure of wind and wave. And Jesus met him in that imperfection with a hand extended in grace. You do not need perfect faith to walk on water. You need enough faith to get out of the boat. And when the wind makes you doubt and the waves make you afraid and you begin to feel yourself sinking, the same hand that caught Peter is extended toward you. Noah built an ark in a landlocked region with no rain in sight, based on a word from God that every single person around him would have considered the product of a troubled mind. He built for 120 years. 120 years of hammering and sawing and constructing a massive vessel on dry ground, while his neighbors watched and laughed and questioned his sanity. 120 years of doing the thing God said to do with no visible evidence that it was the right thing to do, and every social signal suggesting it was the wrong thing, until the day the sky opened and the rain came and every single drop validated every single day of obedient, faith-filled, impossible work. You may feel right now like Noah building something that does not make sense yet, moving toward a promise that is not visible yet, trusting a word that has not been confirmed yet, continuing forward in a direction that others around you do not understand and cannot see what you see. Keep building, keep praying, keep obeying, keep moving in the direction God pointed you. Your miracle may be one faithful step away. The door may open the very next time you knock. Do not stop now. Do not stop when you are this close to what you have been pressing toward. There is something important that God wants you to understand about the blessing He is preparing for your life, and it changes everything about the way you think about receiving it. The blessing is not just for you. It was never designed to be just for you. When God favors a life, when He elevates someone from obscurity to significance, when He opens doors that were sealed shut and restores what was lost and multiplies what was given, He is not doing it simply because He loves that one person and wants them to be comfortable and content. He is doing it because He has a plan that runs through that person, a plan that is bigger than any individual life, a plan that touches communities and families and generations that have not yet been born. There was a woman named Esther, an orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, who through an extraordinary chain of providential events found herself chosen as queen, married to the most powerful king in the known world. She had access and influence and position that she had not sought and could not have manufactured on her own. And when a catastrophic threat arose against her people, a threat that would have meant their complete and total destruction, Mordecai came to her and spoke words that have echoed through millennia. Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? The blessing was never just about Esther's comfort or her status or her personal elevation. It was about what Esther was positioned to do for others in a moment that required exactly the access she had been given. Her elevation was the instrument of their salvation. She could have protected herself. She could have reasoned that it was too dangerous, that the risk was too great, that she would keep her head down and preserve what she had. But she did not. She stepped into the fullness of her purpose, and she saved a nation. The blessing that flows through you is always greater than the blessing that stops with you. The gifts you carry, the compassion, the creativity, the resilience, the perspective that only your particular suffering could have given you, these are not just personal assets. They are meant to flow outward, to serve, to heal, to restore, to become the testimony that gives someone else in a dark season the courage to believe that morning is still possible. There is a practice that seems counterintuitive when you are still in the middle of the waiting, still standing between the promise and its fulfillment, still in the not yet, and yet it is one of the most powerful things you can do to align yourself with what God is preparing to pour into your life. That practice is gratitude, not the performance of gratitude, not the forced cheerfulness that pretends the pain is not real, not the spiritual bypass that skips over genuine struggle and pastes a smile over an open wound, but the deep, deliberate daily act of turning your attention toward what God has already done, what He has already provided, what He has already given, and acknowledging it with a heart that means it. Gratitude is not just a feeling that arises when circumstances are good. It is a spiritual posture, a choice, a discipline, an act of will that says, I trust you, God, not only when I can see what you are doing, but also when I cannot. I trust your goodness even in the silence. I trust your faithfulness even in the waiting. There is a moment in the Gospel of John where Jesus, standing before a small lunch of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and an impossibly hungry crowd of thousands of people, paused and gave thanks. Before any multiplication had occurred, before there was any natural reason to be grateful for what was in front of him. He gave thanks before the miracle, acknowledging the Father's goodness before a single additional loaf had appeared, and then the abundance came. The gratitude preceded the provision. The praise opened the way for the miracle. When you practice gratitude, when you begin your morning by naming, specifically and out loud, what God has already given you, the mercy of another day, the breath in your lungs, the evidence of past faithfulness you can trace through your own life story, you are building the spiritual atmosphere in which blessing flourishes. You are training your heart to recognize God's goodness in the ordinary before it manifests in the extraordinary. Start today. Name what you already have before you name what you still need. Thank Him before the breakthrough. Praise Him in the silence. The praise that costs you something is faith in its purest and most powerful form, and that faith moves things. So here is what is true about you, right now, today, in this moment that was not an accident and never was. You are chosen, not chosen because you are perfect or because you have earned it through religious performance or because your life is more impressive than someone else's. Chosen because God, in His infinite wisdom and His love that surpasses understanding, looked at your life, all of it, the beautiful and the broken, the triumphant and the deeply private failures, and He chose you anyway. He chose you fully informed. He chose you knowing every mistake you would make, every season of doubt, every moment of walking away, and every moment of crawling back. He chose you not in spite of your story, but through it, because your particular story is the exact preparation required for your particular purpose, and He has not changed His mind. You are loved with a love that does not fluctuate with your performance, that does not cool when you disappoint, that does not look away when you fail. You are loved with the kind of love that goes to a cross willingly, that pays the highest conceivable price, not because it is obligated to, but because it wants to, because you matter that much, not theoretically, not in some abstract theological sense, but personally, Specifically, irreducibly. You are protected by a God who sees the dangers you cannot see, who shuts doors that would have led you somewhere devastating, who places the right person in your path at the right moment, who turns what the enemy intended for destruction into the very thing that builds you. You are destined for something that your current season has been building you toward, something that will require everything forged in you, through every difficulty and every delay, and every hard and holy night of pressing through. Your season is changing, not eventually, not someday in the vague and distant future. Now, the shift is already in motion. The thing you have been praying for, the healing, the restoration, the open door, the financial provision, the relationship made whole again, the peace that has felt so impossibly far away, God has not forgotten it. He has been holding it carefully, preparing it precisely, making it exactly right for the version of you that is being forged right now in the fire of this season. Every delayed answer has been an act of love. Every closed door has been a form of divine protection. Every hard season has been a school that could not have been replaced by anything easier or more comfortable. Right now, in this moment, if your heart has been stirred by these words, if something in you has recognized a truth you needed to hear, if the hope that had been buried under the accumulated weight of too many disappointments has shifted even slightly, if you can feel, even faintly, the warmth of a love that has been pursuing you all along, respond to that. Do not let this moment pass without receiving what it carried. Pray, right now, wherever you are. However long it has been since you talked to God with this kind of honesty, open your mouth or your heart and say simply, God, I believe you have not forgotten me. I believe I am chosen. I believe the blessing is coming. I surrender everything standing between me and your best for my life. I trust you. That prayer does not need to be eloquent. It just has to be honest. And the God who parted the sea and raised the dead and turned mourning into dancing, that God is listening. That God is already moving. Speak these words over your life, because there is power in declaration, power in hearing your own voice agree with what God has already said about you. Say, I am chosen. I am not forgotten. My delay is not my denial. My struggle is my preparation. My blessing is coming. God is working all things together for my good. I will not give up. I will not give in. I will not release the promise. The enemy does not have the final word over my life. God does, and God has spoken. He has said that I am loved, that I am called, that I am protected, that I am destined for more than I can currently see from where I am standing. Surrender what is heavy. The fear that has been following you, give it to God. The anxiety about the future that tightens in your chest before you even get out of bed in the morning, lay it down. The shame from the past that keeps pulling you backward into a version of yourself you no longer are, release it. The God who holds the future is asking for the things that are too heavy for you to carry alone, and He is strong enough, loving enough, faithful enough to hold every single one of them. You were not designed to carry this alone. You were designed for a relationship with the one who is infinitely capable and infinitely present and infinitely good. And that relationship is available to you right now, not after you have fixed yourself, not after you have proven you deserve it, not after you have earned back what feels like lost ground right now, exactly as you are, exactly as He found you. You are closer to your blessing than you think. You are closer than the last disappointment made you feel. You are closer than the silence seemed to suggest. You are closer than the closed doors indicated. The journey that felt like it was taking you in circles has actually been taking you deeper, building in you something that cannot be built any other way, something that will be needed for where you are going, and where you are going is greater than where you have been. The plans God has for your life are not small plans. They are not average plans. They are plans to give you a future and a hope, plans that have been in place since before you took your first breath, plans that have survived every mistake and every detour and every season of doubt and every moment of failure and every year of waiting. Those plans are still active. That calling is still yours. That destiny has not been reassigned. And the God who started the good work in you is faithful utterly, completely, without a single exception to complete it. You are not at the end of your story. You are not even close to the end. The best chapters have not been written yet. The blessing you have been waiting for is not behind you. It is ahead of you. It is already on its way. Because you are God's chosen one. And God does not choose without purpose. does not promise without fulfillment, does not call without also providing everything required to answer. Hold on. Keep believing. Stay open. Stay faithful. The breakthrough is nearer than it has ever been. And you were made specifically, intentionally, beautifully made for this very moment. There is one more thing that needs to be said, and it may be the most personal thing of all. Throughout this message, you have heard about great biblical figures: Moses, David, Peter, Joseph, Esther, Abraham, Ruth. You have heard their stories of delay and difficulty and divine appointment, and perhaps, somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice has been suggesting that those were different kinds of people, that they were somehow fundamentally different from you, that the God who worked so visibly and so powerfully in their lives was operating in a different era, under different rules, with a different kind of willingness to show up in ordinary human lives. That voice is lying to you, and it is important that you hear that clearly and directly. The God of Abraham is the God of this moment. The same power that divided the Red Sea is available to you right now, in your specific situation, in your particular need, in the private and unresolvable problem you have been carrying without telling anyone about. The God who spoke to Moses out of a burning bush on an ordinary day in the middle of an ordinary work week is the same God who is speaking to you right now through the stirring in your chest and the sense that these words are landing somewhere real. The God who pulled David out of obscurity from behind a flock of sheep and put a crown on his head is the same God who sees you in your current hiddenness and has not revised his plans for you based on where you currently are. These stories are not just ancient history preserved for academic interest. They are prototypes. They are patterns. They are God showing you, through the record of how he has always moved, exactly how he is capable of moving in your life if you will only believe. And faith is not complicated. At its core, in its most distilled and essential form, faith is simply this: the decision to trust God more than you trust your circumstances. The decision to believe what he has said about you more than you believe what the last difficult season seemed to say. The decision to keep your hand in his even when the road is dark and you cannot see where the next step lands. That decision made daily, made in the ordinary moments, made when it costs something, is the activating force that releases everything God has already prepared. You do not have to feel faith for it to work. You do not have to be free of doubt for your faith to be real. The man who came to Jesus and said, "I believe, help my unbelief," that man received his miracle. The imperfect faith, the honest faith, the faith that admitted its own weakness while still reaching toward God, that was enough, that is always enough. So wherever you are in your journey right now, whether you are in the early, disorienting stages of a season you do not yet understand, or whether you have been in the waiting for so long it has become its own kind of exhausting normal, or whether you are standing at what feels like the very edge of breakthrough, trembling between the promise and the fulfillment, wherever you are, this is the word that was prepared for you today. Do not let go. Do not let go of the promise. Do not let go of the faith. Do not let go of the God who has been holding you through every season you thought might swallow you whole, and has brought you to this day, to this moment, to this word. He has been faithful. He is faithful. He will be faithful. Every single prayer you have prayed in earnest, every act of obedience that cost you something, every moment you chose to trust him when your feelings told you to give up, none of that has been lost. None of it has evaporated. It has been accumulating, building, adding up to something. It has been filling a cup that is getting closer to overflowing with every passing day. There is a man named Thomas who, when told by all his fellow disciples that Jesus had risen from the dead and appeared to them, said, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." And the story of Thomas has been told for 2,000 years as the story of doubt. But what is equally true is that Thomas did not leave. He was still in the room 8 days later when Jesus appeared again. He doubted, but he stayed. He questioned, but he did not walk away. And when Jesus appeared and said to him, "Put your finger here and see my hands," Thomas did not need to do it. He simply looked at the risen Christ and said, "My Lord and my God." He doubted his way to a deeper faith than he had possessed before. Your doubt is not a disqualifier. Your honest wrestling with God in the dark is not a sign of insufficient faith. It may be the very thing that leads you into a faith more real and more grounded and more unshakable than the faith you would have settled for if everything had always been easy and uncomplicated. The blessing that God has for you is not a reward for perfect behavior. It is not a prize for the most impressive spiritual performance. It is a gift freely given, lavishly prepared, specifically designed for you by a Father who loves you with the kind of love that never runs out and never gives up and never decides you are not worth the effort. And receiving a gift requires only one thing: open hands. Open hands and an open heart, willing to receive what is being offered, willing to say yes to the grace that has been pursuing you through every chapter of your story. Open your hands today. Open your heart today. Say yes to the God who has been saying yes to you since before you were born. Yes to your worth. Yes to your purpose. Yes to your future. Yes to the blessing that has your name on it and has never been reassigned to anyone else. You are God's chosen one. This is not flattery. This is not motivational language designed to make you feel good for a few hours before the weight of ordinary life settles back in. This is the truth that the God of the universe has spoken over your life, confirmed through His word, and sealed by the love of a Savior who thought you were worth everything. The seasons of hardship have been preparation. The delays have been protection. The silence has been God working in the depths where human eyes cannot see. And the breakthrough that is coming, and it is coming, because His word does not return void, because what He has promised, He is faithful to perform. That breakthrough will be more than worth every day of the waiting, every single day. Hold on, hold on. You are closer than you know. You are stronger than you feel. You are more loved than you have allowed yourself to believe. And the God who chose you, that God who knew you before you were formed, who counted the days of your life and the number of your tears and the specific weight of your particular longing, that God has not changed His mind about you. He never will. You are His. You are chosen, and you are standing at the edge of the most significant season your life has ever seen. Take a moment right now, just a moment, right where you are, and let what you have heard today settle into the places inside you that needed to hear it most. The restless places, the tired places, the places where hope had started to feel like a liability rather than a strength. Let it settle there. Because the God who created you does not speak casually. He does not say things He does not mean. And what He has been saying over your life from the very beginning is this: I see you. I know you. I have not forgotten you. What I started in you, I intend to finish. The hard seasons have not changed my mind. The failures have not revised my plans. The distance you felt was never me moving away. It was me drawing you closer to the deeper, truer version of the relationship I always intended for us to have. If there is one thing you carry away from this message, let it be this: the waiting is not wasted. The struggling is not meaningless. The closed doors were not the final word. The silence was not absence. And you, the real, whole, complicated, beautiful, imperfect, chosen, beloved you were never for a single moment outside of God's sight, outside of His love, outside of His plan. You were always in the middle of it. You have always been in the middle of it. And the middle is not the end. The middle is where the story is still being written, where the God who holds every thread is weaving something together that you do not yet have the vantage point to fully see. Trust the weaver. Trust the process. Trust the God who has carried you this far and has every intention of carrying you the rest of the way. Your blessing is real. Your calling is real. Your chosenness is real. And it is not finished yet. It is only just beginning.